What happens when Meghan Markle steps onto the set of The View and sparks fly? You won't believe what unfolds when the Duchess faces off against Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Host, in a clash already being called the most explosive episode in the show's history. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, cause this confrontation is one you won't want to miss. Last night, The View aired an episode that had everyone talking. The guest, none other than Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, known for her polarizing presence and unapologetic opinions. The stage was set for a fiery exchange, with Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny ready to grill their guest. From the moment Meghan walked out, the tension was palpable. What started as a routine interview quickly spiraled into a verbal showdown that left jaws on the floor. The episode began with the usual fanfare, cheers from the audience, the host's signature banter, and Meghan striding onto the set in a sleek, tailored blazer. Her smile, polished but guarded. Whoopi, perched at the head of the table, gave her a nod, but her eyes were sharp, sizing Meghan up like a boxer before a match. Joy, never one to hold back, leaned forward with a smirk, her pen tapping the table as if counting down to the first jab. Sunny, cool and calculated, adjusted her glasses, her legal mind already dissecting Meghan's every word. The other two panelists, less vocal but no less opinionated, watched from the sidelines, ready to jump in when the moment called. The opening segment was meant to be light, a discussion about Meghan's latest projects, her life in California, and her pivot from royalty to media mogul. But the hosts had other plans. Whoopi kicked things off, her voice low but pointed. Meghan, you've been in the headlines a lot lately. Some say you're chasing fame. Others say you're just trying to live your truth. Which is it? The question landed like a grenade, and the audience murmured, sensing the edge in her tone. Meghan didn't flinch. She tilted her head, her smile tightening. I'm focused on building something meaningful, she said, her voice smooth but laced with defiance. I don't chase fame. I create opportunities. There's a difference. The audience clapped, but Joy wasn't having it. She leaned in, her eyes glinting with skepticism. Opportunities. Some would say you're capitalizing on your title while distancing yourself from the royal family. That's a pretty convenient pivot, don't you think? The air grew heavy. Meghan's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. I'm not here to rehash old narratives, she said, her tone clipped. I'm here to talk about what I'm doing now. Empowering women, amplifying voices, creating content that matters. Sunny raised an eyebrow, her voice cutting through like a scalpel. But let's be real, Meghan. Your brand thrives on controversy. Every move you make seems calculated to keep you in the spotlight. Is that empowerment or just good PR? The audience gasped, and Meghan's eyes narrowed. She leaned forward, hands clasped tightly on the table. Sunny, with all due respect, I don't think it's fair to reduce my work to PR. I've spent years building something authentic, and I'm not going to apologize for being visible. The response was measured, but the undercurrent of irritation was clear. Whoopi snorted, folding her arms. Authentic? That's a big word, Meghan. Some might say you're more about headlines than heart. The crowd stirred a mix of cheers and murmurs, rippling through the studio. Meghan's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, her voice steady. I'm not surprised you'd say that, Whoopi. People love to tear down what they don't understand. My work speaks for itself. The jab was subtle, but it hit its mark. Whoopi's eyes flashed, and she leaned forward, voice rising. Oh, we understand plenty, Meghan. We understand someone who walks away from duty and then cries victim when the world doesn't roll out the red carpet. The audience erupted, some clapping, others gasping. Joy jumped in, her voice sharp. Let's talk about that duty. You left the royal family. Fine. But then you go on global stages, spilling tea about them while still using the Duchess title. You can't have it both ways, Meghan. Accusing hung in the air, and Meghan's composure cracked just enough for the cameras to catch a flicker of anger in her eyes. I'm not here to defend my choices to you, Joy, she shot back. I'm here to talk about my work, not to be interrogated about my past. Sonny smirked, sensing blood in the water. But your past is your brand, Meghan. You can't separate the two. You've built a career on being the outsider, the rebel, the one who speaks truth. But is it truth, or just your version of it? The audience was eating it up, their reactions a mix of cheers and murmurs. Meghan's lips pressed into a thin line as she took a slow breath before responding. My truth is my truth, Sonny. I don't need your approval to validate it. The tension was electric, the kind that makes you lean closer to the screen, knowing something bigger is coming. Whoopi wasn't about to let Meghan have the last word. You talk about truth, but let's talk about accountability, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. You've got a lot to say about everyone else, but when it comes to taking responsibility for your own choices, you dodge. That's not truth. That's convenience. The audience roared, and Meghan's face flushed, hands gripping the edge of the table. The segment was supposed to wrap there with a commercial break to cool things down. But the hosts weren't done. Joy leaned in again, tone mocking. You know, Meghan, for someone who claims to be about empowerment, you sure spend a lot of time playing the victim card. Why not own your choices instead of blaming everyone else? The crowd was on edge, sensing the interview veering into something far bigger than a standard cockshow segment. The conversation had veered into dangerous territory. Meghan Markle's eyes darted between the hosts, her voice low but sharp. I own every choice I've made. Can you say the same, Joy? Or are you just here to twist my words for clicks? The audience gasped. Whoopi's face hardened. She pointed a finger at Meghan, her voice booming. Don't come on my show and try to flip the script, Meghan. You're not the only one with a voice here. The energy in the studio was chaotic, buzzing like static before a storm. Meghan didn't back down. Her voice rose to meet theirs. I'm not trying to flip anything, Whoopi. I'm just asking for a fair conversation, not a witch hunt. The stage was set for collision. The commercial break couldn't come soon enough. Cameras panned out, capturing Meghan's rigid posture. Her eyes locked on Whoopi, who returned to stare with equal intensity. The other panelists exchanged glances. They'd struck a nerve, and none were letting go. When the show returned, the tension was electric. The audience murmured, restless, sensing the storm about to break. Meghan sat ramrod straight, hands folded tightly, gaze fixed just past Whoopi, who leaned back in her chair, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. Joy Behar's smirk hadn't faded, her fingers drumming the table like a countdown to the next verbal strike. Sonny host, ever the strategist, adjusted her notes, eyes flicking between Meghan and her co-hosts, ready to pounce. The quieter panelists watched with hawk-like focus. The room was a powder keg. The fuse was already lit. Whoopi didn't waste a second. Welcome back to The View, she said, voice deceptively calm, but laced with venom. We're here with Meghan Markle, and let's just say, things are getting real. The audience chuckled nervously, anticipating the next explosion. Whoopi turned to Meghan, eyes narrowing. Before the break, you said you wanted a fair conversation. So, let's have it. Why do people call you out for playing both sides, the royal and the rebel? Meghan's lips twitched, irritation flashing before she smoothed it over. Whoopi, I'm not playing any sides, she said, voice steady but tight. I'm living my life, building my legacy. If people want to twist that into some narrative about hypocrisy, that's their problem, not mine. The audience murmured, some clapping, others shifting uneasily. Joy snorted, leaning forward. Your legacy, Meghan. Selling jam, Netflix specials, all while leaning on that Duchess title. That's not a legacy. That's a hustle. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Meghan's eyes blazed with barely contained anger. "Joy, you're deliberately misrepresenting my work," she shot back, voice rising. "My work is about impact, philanthropy, storytelling, lifting others up. I don't need to justify that to you or anyone else." Sunny jumped in, her tone sharp and prosecutorial. "But you're not answering the question, Meghan. You can't claim independence while profiting off the royal brand. That's what people resent. Why not just drop the title and stand on your own?" The audience roared, a mix of cheers and murmurs. Meghan's jaw clenched, leaning forward, voice low but cutting. "Sunny, I earned that title through marriage, through service, through sacrifice. I'm not dropping anything because you or anyone else thinks it fits your narrative." Whoopi wasn't letting it slide. "Sacrifice," she scoffed, voice booming. "You walked away from a family, a country, a duty, and now you're crying sacrifice. Spare me, Meghan. You're not fooling anyone." The crowd erupted, and Meghan's composure cracked. Her hands slammed lightly on the table. "I'm not crying anything, Whoopi," she snapped. "I left a toxic situation to protect my family. You don't get to judge that from your chair." The audience split, some cheering Meghan's fire, others shouting support for Whoopi. Joy leaned in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Protect your family or protect your brand. Every interview, every podcast, every book feels like a calculated move to keep the drama alive." Meghan's eyes blazed. She turned to Joy, voice shaking with controlled rage. "You're accusing me of manufacturing drama. Look around, Joy. You're the ones turning this into a circus, twisting my words to fit your agenda." Sunny smirked, unfazed. "Agenda? We're just asking questions, Meghan. If you can't handle them, maybe you're not as ready for this platform as you think." The jab landed. Meghan's face flushed, breath quickening. "I'm more than ready, Sunny," she said, voice icy. "I see," Sunny replied, "but I'm not interested in watching you play punching bag for ratings." The audience was electric, hanging on every word. Whoopi leaned forward, voice razor sharp. "Oh, you're ready? All right. Ready to dodge accountability while parading around like some kind of truth. You've been coasting, Meghan, acting for too long." The crowd gasped. Silence fell for a split second before erupting into chaos, cheers, boos, shouts. Meghan froze, eyes wide, hands trembling on the table. "Excuse me," she said, voice low. "Dangerous. Did you just call me selfish on national television?" Whoopi didn't blink. "I said it. You come here acting like you're above it all, but you're not. You're playing a game, and we're calling it out." The audience was on its feet, the air electric with chaos. Meghan Markle's breath hitched as she leaned forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "You don't get to talk to me like that, Whoopi. I came here in good faith, and you're turning this into a personal attack." Joy's dark chuckle cut through the tension. "Good faith. You walked in knowing exactly what you were stepping into. Don't act surprised now." Meghan's eyes flicked between the hosts, chest rising and falling rapidly. "This isn't a conversation," she shot back, voice cracking with fury. "This is an ambush. You're not here to hear me, just want to tear me down." Sunny tilted her head, calm but sharp. "If you feel ambushed, maybe it's because you're not used to being challenged. You're used to curating your narrative. Meghan, this is real talk." The audience cheered, but Meghan shook her head, voice rising. "Real talk. This is a lynching, and you know it." The word landed like a bomb. The studio fell into a stunned hush. Whoopi's face hardened, her voice low, furious. "Don't you dare throw that word around, Meghan. You don't get to play that card here." The audience was split, some shouting in agreement, others murmuring uneasily. Meghan didn't flinch, eyes locked on Whoopi. "I'm calling it what it is," she said, voice trembling but full of conviction. You're ganging up on me, twisting my words, insulting me on live TV. That's not a discussion. That's a takedown. Joy rolled her eyes, her voice sharp as a knife. Oh, please, Meghan. You're not a victim here. You walked onto this set ready to spar, and now you're crying foul because we're hitting back. Meghan's hands shook as she pointed at Joy, voice cracking. I'm not crying anything, Joy. I'm calling out your hypocrisy. You claim fairness, but all you do is bully me for headlines. The studio erupted in a cacophony of reactions, the tension almost suffocating. Whoopi leaned forward, voice a growl. Bullying. Look at how you dragged your own family through the mud, Meghan. Don't lecture us about fairness. The crowd roared. Meghan's face went pale, eyes glistening with unshed tears. You don't know my story, Whoopi, she whispered, voice barely audible. You don't know what I've been through. Sunny's smirk was icy. We know enough, Meghan. The world knows enough. The confrontation hit fever pitch. The cameras captured every flinch, every glare, every tremble. The audience was glued, sensing history being made. How much more could Meghan endure before snapping? The stage felt ready to explode. Studio lights burned hotter, casting sharp shadows across the tense set. Meghan's hands gripped the table so tightly her knuckles whitened. Whoopi's gaze was a mix of disdain and defiance. Joy's smirk was a weapon, daring Meghan to fight. Sunny.com, an unrelenting, scribbled notes while her eyes tracked every micro-expression. The quieter panelists leaned in, their silence as heavy as the words flying across the table. The tension finally snapped. Whoopi's voice cut through the room like steel. You say we don't know your story, Meghan, but we know enough. You've built a career pointing fingers, but when the spotlight hits you, you crumble. Why should we believe you're anything more than a calculated opportunist? The audience erupted in chaos, sears, gasps, and shouts all at once. Meghan leaned forward, eyes blazing, voice shaking but resolute. Opportunists, Whoopi. Look at this show. You thrive on tearing people down and call it real talk. You're not journalists, you're vultures. The crowd roared again, half cheering Meghan's audacity, half defending the hosts. Joy's laugh cut through the noise. Vultures. That's rich. You've been picking at the royal family's carcass for years, and now you're mad we're calling you out. Meghan's voice rose to near shouting. I'm not mad, Joy. I'm done. Done with you twisting everything I say to fit your narrative. You don't want a conversation. You want a spectacle. Sunny's eyes narrowed, tone icy. A spectacle. Meghan, you've built your brand on drama. Every interview, every project, tapes all calculated to stay relevant. Don't act like you're above this. The audience buzzed like a live wire, reactions a chaotic mix of support and dissent. Meghan shook her head, voice trembling with rage. You're wrong, Sunny. I'm not here for relevance. I'm here for impact. But you wouldn't know the difference. You're too busy playing judge and jury. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Enough with the martyr act, Meghan. You come on this show acting like a beacon of truth, but you're dodging accountability. You don't get to lecture us after leaving a trail of chaos everywhere you go. The audience exploded. Meghan's breath caught, eyes wide with shock and fury. You're crossing a line, Whoopi, she said, voice low and dangerous. You don't get to call me that and expect me to sit here and take it. The crowd was on its feet, the energy chaotic, almost suffocating. Joy leaned in, venom dripping from every word. Then don't sit here, Meghan. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. The audience erupted, some chanting for Meghan to stay, others egging on the hosts. Meghan's eyes darted between them, chest heaving as she fought to hold herself together. You think I'm scared of you? She shot back, voice cracking with emotion. I've faced worse than this, Joy, but I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected. Sunny's smirk was sharp, her voice calm, but cutting. Disrespected, Meghan. You've disrespected an entire institution, your family, and now you act like we're the bad guys for pointing it out. That's not how this works, okay? Meghan's hands trembled as she pointed a finger at Sunny. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know half of it. And yet you sit there, smug, acting like you've got me figured out. You don't. Whoopi's eyes blazed, leaning forward. Her voice was a low growl. We know enough, Meghan. We know you've got a knack for playing the victim while cashing in on drama. You're not fooling anyone anymore. The audience was a storm of noise. Meghan's face paled, eyes glistening with unshed tears, but her voice remained steady. You're wrong about me, Whoopi, and I'm not staying here while you lie about who I am. The studio fell into a stunned hush. Meghan pushed her chair back. The screech of metal against the floor cut through the silence. I came here to talk about my work, my vision, she said, voice trembling but firm. But you've made it clear you're not interested in that. You want blood and I'm not giving it to you. Gasps filled the studio. Some shouted for her to stay. Others cheered the host's relentless attack. Whoopi folded her arms, cold and calculated. If you can't handle a real conversation, Meghan, maybe you're not as strong as you think. Meghan stood, posture rigid, eyes locked on Whoopi. I'm stronger than you'll ever know, she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But I don't need to prove that to you. I'm done here. With that, she ripped off her mic, the device clattering to the table, and strode toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the stage. Joy called after her, mocking, run away. Meghan, that's what you do best. The audience erupted into a whirlwind of reactions, some booing, some shouting support. Sunny muttered under her breath, typical, while Whoopi leaned back, expression unreadable, yet triumphant, as if she'd won a war. The cameras followed Meghan's silhouette as she disappeared behind the curtains, leaving the hosts and audience in stunned, electric silence. The stage lay in chaos. The hosts remained unmoved, faces a mixture of satisfaction and defiance. The audience buzzed, dissecting every moment of the explosive confrontation. Whoopi turned to the camera, voice calm but firm. Well, folks, that's the View for you. Real talk, no filter. We'll be right back. The crowd erupted one final time as the show cut to commercial. Meghan's stormy exit etched into the minds of everyone watching. The confrontation was over, but its echoes would linger.